Welcome to the award-winning Tough Girl podcast, now celebrating 10 years. I'm Sarah Williams, and every week I bring you stories from women in the world of adventure and physical challenge. Get inspired, stay motivated, and be part of a movement that's increasing the visibility of female role models, especially in relation to adventure and endurance. New episodes every Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time. Support the mission at patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast and dive deeper at toughgirlchallenges.com.
My name is Tiphaine. I'm 31 years old. I'm from France. So I'm now based in the Alps, close to Chamonix. And I just came back 2 months ago from a big bicycle trip and hiking that we'll probably talk about. And I've been basically traveling on and off for the last 10 years. So basically, I just did my study, got my diploma, and then went for 1 year working holiday visa in Australia. And then I just was back to France once in a while, like 6 months to work and be able to travel again. So I've been on 3 big bicycle trips. The first one, which I was on already on the podcast, that I came back in 2019. So that was like Europe and Africa. And then the second bike trip, North America from Mexico to Alaska. And now this last one, cycling from France to Nepal and then hiking the Great Himalaya Trail.
Oh my goodness, absolutely incredible. And so like you mentioned, you have actually been on the Tough Girl podcast previously, and that episode came out on November 18th, 2021. I'll make sure I include the link so that people can go back and listen to that episode, because during the episode we learn, more about your early years, backpacking with your family, and then, planning for your first cycle trip, saving up the money, what happened on your 23rd birthday, using warm showers, resupply, elephants, accommodation, route planning, different challenges, all of the highlights as well. So definitely well worth listening to that episode. But this episode, we're going to be focusing on that big, all your challenges are big. You've done a huge amount of cycling, but riding on your bike from France to Nepal to go and hike the Great Himalayan Trail, which is just phenomenal. And the Great Himalaya Trail is also like a massive dream of mine. But let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to the dream. Let's go back to the vision. Let's go back to planning, having this conversation when you started to think, yeah, this is going to be the next challenge. This is what we want to do next. How did that all come about?
So I was actually hiking the high route in the Pyrenees alone by myself for 25 days in France and Spain. And my boyfriend joined me at the end of the hike for 1 week. And after this one, he was like a bit as a joke, like saying, "Oh, is the next one the Great Himalaya Trail?" I never heard about this trail before. And I started to do some research and I started to get enthusiastic about it and to do it together, especially because we had been on big bike trips before, but never together. So I was like, yeah, okay, sure. It sounds great, but I wanted to add some little extra fun and adventure, and I love cycling. So I was like, okay, we can do this hike only if we can cycle to Nepal first and not go there by plane. So then we started to look a bit into the visa stuff and everything for the countries to cross until Nepal. And it took a bit of a time, especially for Great Himalaya Trail, which is like a bit difficult to see what's on the terrain and like to really plan, because there are a lot of trails that change throughout the years because of the monsoon and everything. So, but yeah, we started to look into it like 6 months before leaving. And then because of the seasons and everything, we left in March 2024.
So what was your route then? So leaving from France, which countries did you decide to go through and visit? What did that look like?
So the main goal was more like Turkey and Iran, but like I already cycled 2 times in Europe, so I was a bit fed up with Europe. But my boyfriend Pierre really wanted to not start with a bus or something. So we cycled Europe in like 1 month, so really fast without like no days of break. So we went through the Balkan countries and Greece and took the ferry to Turkey. So after 1 month, we were already in Turkey. And we crossed whole Turkey during 1 month, then Georgia, Armenia, Iran, and then a lot of Stan countries that not many people know about, like so Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan. We went through China a little bit, then Pakistan, India, Nepal, and that was it.
Which was some of the highlights from the cycle ride, especially like from the countries that maybe you hadn't visited before? Was it the people that you met? Were there certain things that you were wanting to see along the way? What were some of those like magical moments?
Mm, one of my favorite countries was Turkey because it has like everything in terms of culture and good food and very cheap and very, very welcoming people, very diverse in terms of landscapes. It's just a bit like this transition between Europe and Asia. So it's not so exotic that you are wondering what you're doing here sometimes, or so different. So Turkey has been really a highlight, and also Iran. I mean, that's both countries where we stayed a really long time, but Iran was way more demanding. We found that there was way more a gap between us and people, but it was so interesting because of this very oppressive regime and people like thanking us for coming to visit them because it's like there aren't many tourists in Iran because of its bad reputation, but people are just so happy that you're here, and they're just stopping you on the side of the road to give you food and hosting you at their home. And it's very interesting to see this population that is very oppressed by the regime, but is still like really open to foreigners.
What is your bike setup? What does that look like? What type of bike are you riding? And did you pick a specific type of bike to do this adventure on?
So my bike was the same as the one for my second trip. So it's like a Fahrrad manufacture. It's like a German bike that is for expedition. A lot of bike travelers have this bike. So it's quite heavy, but it's very resistant and doesn't have many problems. And I have 4 panniers. So that's very good, like two at the front, two at the back. And that's very good to organize things. So it's not a bike packing setup as in really tight and very minimalistic, because I want to have some comfort because it's like a 6 months bike trip. So you need a good mattress and sleeping bag and tent and everything to camp. And also like for different types of weather, because we left in March in Europe was still really cold and some roads were closed because of snow in the Balkan countries. So, and then for summer, obviously. So you have to have like kind of everything with you.
Talking about the weather, I know that you had quite extreme heat in one of the stands where it was pretty hellish for you. And so you needed to change how you rode. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, that was one of the main thing we didn't really plan. So basically, we're like, okay, if we leave Europe in March, we can be in the Pamir area, which is in Central Asia. It's a mountainous area where there are some roads that are up to like 4,000-meter altitude. So you basically need to be there in the summer season. So that's what we planned, but we didn't really think about what the weather will be like when we are in the valley. So we got hit by the heat basically. So it was like Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan were really, really hard because it's like desert countries, very low and super hot, like plus 40 degrees. So in Turkmenistan, we only had a 5 days transit visa, which is already really hard to have, but it's only 5 days. So basically the first day you enter the country, so it takes a lot of time to go through the border. So you have basically 3 full days to cross the country, which is very short. We started to cycle at night because it was just impossible to cycle during the day with this heat. This was tiring because you don't see anything at night. So basically, like, it's pretty boring. And there was so much wind and it was, yeah, really, really hard. And then we had to take a train because it was just not possible for us to cross the countries in only 3 days. And same in Uzbekistan. And so we decided to take a few trains because we are really suffering so much from the heat. And there is not much you can do about it except from cycling at night, which is very demanding for the body.
One of the biggest questions that that you probably get asked actually is funding. How did you pay for this trip? Were you self-funding? Did you get sponsorship? How did you manage costs?
We were living on this trip on our savings, basically. So maybe it's interesting to say that our daily budget is really, really low. It's like for the bike, at least for the cycling trip, it's like 10 euros per person per day. So that's really nothing. And so when we are in France and we are working, we're just saving and then we can live on that. We got a few sponsors, but that was only for equipment, which is already really nice because you don't have to spend your money and invest on equipment at the beginning of the trip. So we could just have our savings for the whole trip. So that was pretty nice.
So what do you do when you're not traveling? Are you sort of in are you still making a living from being like an adventurer, like doing motivational speaking or writing books or doing stuff like that? Or do you have in air quotes a proper job?
I've been writing two books, but I didn't live from that because it was not the goal. It was just like kind of a therapy when I come back between two trips and doing something, digest a bit what happened during a year and everything. So it was more like for me and then just printing it and selling it at festival and stuff. But I'm also a social worker, so I've been going back to that recently. So before this last trip, I was working a year and a half as a social worker. So that's something I like and that I want to go forward to as well.
Could you share more about the day-to-day sort of rhythm of how it works when you're out on the bike? Like, I don't know like how structured you are, but are you waking up at a similar time each day? If you've been camping, you like have your coffee or have your breakfast, whether you have a stove or not stoveless, how long you cycle for, how many rest breaks you take. So whether it's, really chill, go with the flow, or it's like, I mean, obviously it depends where you are. It's like, no, you want to cycle the big distances and it's get up, cycle from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Or is it more chilled? It's like, we're going to stop. I'm going to read my Kindle. I'm just going to watch the world go by. What's the day-to-day life like riding your bike these great distances?
First of all, the days are like really set by the daylight. So it really depends. Like when we left in Europe, it was very short days, like it was getting dark at like maybe 6 p.m. or something like that. So you have to stop quite early and also like wake up with the sunlight because yeah, we don't really cycle at night except like in really hot countries sometimes, but we try to avoid this because it's not so fun. So we basically wake up. We are usually camping, like bivouacking or warm showers. So like at people's place. We are rarely in hotels, except at the end when it was really hot to have like a bit of aircon or something. And then, yeah, we have breakfast, coffee, just a big thing. Like when I get up, I'm really hungry and obviously you're going to do an effort. So you need some calories. So we eat straight away and then we start cycling and we basically cycle the whole day. Like we have breaks, maybe like a second little breakfast and then lunch and then again in the afternoon little break. But we are kind of cycling a lot because also the amount of time we had before the beginning of the hike in Nepal was quite short, like 6 months to go to Nepal is not that much. So we cycled a lot and then every maybe a week or 10 days we have a day rest. Also like to visit or if we are in a interesting city or something, or we can stay like 2 days. But usually we don't stay really long where we stop like a day or two to visit is enough for us. So yeah, that's pretty much the rhythm.
I love it. Thank you. Tell us more about the Great Himalaya Trail.
So we first wanted to like start the hike straight away after the bike, but the start of the hike is like either in the far west or in the far east. We decided to do it west to east because it made more sense for us coming from the west by bike. But we had to go through the capital city, Kathmandu, because of like in Nepal, you need a lot of permits to hike. So we needed to go to the capital city, do the permits and also like leave our bikes there. We had prepared a box back home with hiking gear like backpack and hiking shoes that we received in Kathmandu. And so we prepared everything. We had a big rest for like 10 days in Kathmandu, eat well, prepare the last things. And then we took a bus from Kathmandu to the beginning of the hike in far west Nepal. And there we started. So we had pretty much counted like 80 days to go to the far east. That was pretty intense, but yeah, beginning was really, really hard. The first 2 weeks, we thought of quitting the project like few times, like seriously, because everything was too hard for us. Like, for example, we were never finding the way because it's obviously there are no signs and the maps are wrong. We don't have any map on our phone. So it's like middle range mountains. So a lot of vegetation, like a bit like jungle type. So you don't really see further where the path should be. There are many tracks. You never know which one is the right one. And so we were like super late in terms of our schedule. You have to know that in Nepal, because of those permits, you kind of have a schedule. You cannot like start for 2 weeks and then continue because we have put dates for the restricted areas where we are going through, and we have to enter those areas at certain dates. So the first 2 weeks I got sick, and then we didn't have a guide and we got in trouble for it. So basically everything was wrong. And we were thinking, what are we doing here? What if it's not like what we wanted and we just want to stop? But at the same time, my parents were going to come for Christmas. So we had to be in Nepal in December. And didn't know what else to do anyway. And we had to done all the permits. So we're like, okay, well, let's just continue because we don't know what else to do. And then it just got better and better. And then started to go like in high mountains and see those views that you can imagine from Himalaya. And that started to be like the real Himalaya. And that was amazing.
I think the logistics of this walk are really fascinating. So you mentioned like getting the permits and guides as well, because I think that there was a law change or a rule change that Westerners, foreigners need to have a guide. And in terms of the logistics and the planning, like how easy was it to research like all these permits in advance? Or was this something you almost having to do on the fly? What were the rules with the guide? And because you mentioned you sort of got in trouble for it, was this during like the transition phase when they were bringing that in, or were you just being very naughty?
So basically, like getting the permits is really easy. You have to go through a trekking agency in Kathmandu that will do the permits for you. So that's fine. You just have to like plan which itinerary you're going to follow, because obviously if you like go a bit more north, so a bit more south than what you plan, then you're in different areas. So sometimes you don't have the permits for this area. So you have to know which route you're going to take. And then the most difficult thing is to find a trekking agency that will allow you to have the permits without a guide. So basically, like in theory, you need a guide. It's compulsory, like everywhere in Nepal, as soon as you're hiking. So that's a new rule, like, from a year or two. And we decided that we don't want and we cannot do it with a guide. Like financially, it's going to be way too expensive to have a guide for 80 days. Plus the fact that we just want to do it alone and not with a third person that we don't know. It's a really different dynamic. And people were saying like most areas they don't really check. There are just a few areas that are called restricted areas. So those areas are basically bordering Tibet in China. And China doesn't want foreigners to go alone by themselves. Not because it's mountains, just because it's like close to the border. So they don't want foreigners to go through Tibet. So Nepal is like allowing in this because they want to be like friends with them. Anyway, so restricted areas are a bit harder to go through without a guide, but we've been on the hike the whole way without one. We found a trekking agency because we know someone here in France that is Nepalese and have his brother that has a trekking agency. So he was kind enough to do this for us, but he's kind of taking a risk because his name and the name of a real guide is on the papers. And basically, each time we arrived at a checkpost, we had to say that our guide got sick and had to go back, and that we are looking for a local guide and that we will take one. And so we always had to a bit like sneak. And that was sometimes very annoying because you don't have any relation with local people. They are just like, oh, where's your guide? That's just the first question. They don't really want to like deal with you because they've never seen tourists without a guide here. That's especially in Manaslu area. Other than that, it was pretty easy. They don't really check. It's still Nepal, so they put rules, but they don't really make them apply in reality.
You've done all of this cycling, so you're obviously like very, very cycle fit. And then suddenly it's into the hiking. Like, how did your body sort of adapt? And in terms of, I know for me, I get something called like hiker hunger, and you probably have it on the bike as well. In terms of getting food and resupply, especially in like the more remote areas, were you having to do massive food carries, or was it quite easy to get food, electricity when you needed to charge your battery packs, for example? How did those types of logistics work?
So on the Great Himalaya Trail, there are two routes. Basically, one is like the high route, which goes through some passes that requires alpinism equipment, which we chose to like not have. It's like we're not alpinists first, and second, we don't want to carry equipment like ice axe and crampons for like 80 days on our back. So each time the high route was going through these kind of passes, we would take the low route. So we kind of did a mix of both of them. And basically in whole Nepal, you can find resupply quite often, like maximum was like maybe 3 days. The main problem is that if it's not like touristic area with like great shops for trekkers, then it's just a grocery shop with instant noodles and biscuits. So that's the problem. You can resupply, but what you can find is really limited. And also, like if you would have a like normal pasta and not instant noodles, it's really hard to boil them because when you are in altitude, the water is not boiling at 100 degrees. So it would take like ages to boil water and make pasta, especially we don't have gas. Gas was a problem. Like we're using a stove, it's gas. And we kind of knew that there won't be any on the whole hike. So we had 2 gas canister with us and we knew someone that would bring some at kind of like halfway. So, but we still had to like save a bit on gas. So basically we're eating not only, but our own food was instant noodles and biscuits. But when we were stopping in villages, which was still like quite often, we could eat dal bhat. So dal bhat is like the main dish in Nepal. And what is amazing for hikers is that it's unlimited rice and lentils. So it's rice, lentils, and vegetables, and you can just eat as much as you can. So just having like one dal bhat a day would save us on that. But I still got after like 50 days, I got something like I just didn't have enough calories for the effort I was making. So my body was just saying stop. So my legs were kind of shaking. I felt like they cannot hold me anymore. My back felt like 300 kilos on my backpack, felt like 300 kilos on me. And I could not eat anymore. I had like nausea and basically my body was focusing on the effort and not anymore on my stomach. So I was not hungry. I was having nausea and I didn't want to eat. And obviously I was very weak. So we had to stop for 5 days so that I just don't hike at all and just eat. And that was enough for the end of the hike. But then we focused a lot more on resupply. And before we were just like, if we had instant noodles for lunch and then we go through a village like 2 hours later, we would not eat again. And then after this episode, then we were like, okay, now we'll just stop every time there is food. We have to eat, even if we're not hungry. And that was way better. But I think we underestimated at the beginning that we just need a lot of calories for this kind of effort.
Wow, it's like hiker hunger, but also like starvation mode.
Yeah.
When you, it's like, oh. how are you paying for this? Like, are the villages, did you need to take like quite a lot of cash with you, or were you able to pay with card when you were out going through these little villages?
Someone told us that we would not be able to withdraw money for the whole hike, which actually was not true when we were there. There were like a few villages or little towns where you could withdraw money. But anyway, we took cash for 80 days hike. So that was crazy. We went to Kathmandu in a bank and just like kind of withdrew, 900 euros per person. And the biggest note in Nepal is like 4 euros. So I was like a massive thing of like maybe 200 or 300 grams of just notes in our backpack. So that was a bit scary and also a little bit heavy. But yeah, we were just paying cash everywhere.
What was I mean, obviously it's you're in the Himalayas. You're climbing up some big crossing points. Tell us more about like some of those crossing. What was the height of the passes? How were you with regards to the altitude? Like, did your body sort of adapt relatively easily to walking through these high passes?
So the first time we faced altitude was in Dolpa after 2, 3 weeks of hike. So after the really tough times of the beginning. So first, we were really happy to be high mountains because that's more our terrain. We know a bit more. And also it's like we can read a map and we can see which paths we have to go through and we can read more of the mountains because it's more what we know. But obviously it's like the altitude is something like I had never been above 5,000 meters before. And in Dolpa, we had to go through 5 or 6 passes above that 5,000 meters. So we did the acclimatation slowly. So like sleeping first, not too high and just go a bit slow. And then it was fine. We had like really good weather, which was really great. And each pass we went through was like such an achievement. And we were like so happy and it was really amazing landscapes, really mineral and we were alone. We didn't see anyone except in the villages there. So like no hikers at all and just a few Nepalese people in the villages. So this remoteness was also like crazy. But the altitude was okay because we did this progressive acclimatation. But still, you can feel your body's way slower and you're not hungry. So, like, you're just climbing a pass for hours and hours. And when you arrive at the top, you don't really feel like eating. You force yourself a bit. But we never had any really real problem. Its altitude was just more like slower and more tiring, but also like amazing to be at 5,000 or more meter altitude just by yourself.
Yeah. It's almost like because you didn't get a guide, do you feel as though it's a little bit awkward talking about the Great Himalayan Trail? Because there's so many people who will be like, you needed a guide, you should have done it with a guide. It's not fair for you not to do it with a guide. Like, oh my God, why haven't you got a guide? Like,
Mm.
ah. And do you feel as though therefore you can't really talk about it as much because you've sort of done it on a little bit of a naughty way?
I think like we met one couple and another couple. We met two couples that were also hiking the Great Himalaya Trail at the same time as us, and none had a guide. And the first couple was having just a guide from Manaslu, where I was saying this is really hard to be without one because basically Manaslu was always closed for foreigners. And when it opened, it was just open foreigners with guide. So basically people had never seen any foreigners without a guide. And that was like really, and this new rule they put like recently is that, I don't know, I think no one's following it. I don't think that there are any or many people doing the Great Himalaya Trail with a guide. It's just really, I don't know, it's really expensive. You need to have a guide that comes for so long. For example, when we got I don't know what it's called. When we got like a bill, not a bill, but how do you call this? When you ask for how much it would cost,
Yeah, an estimate.
an
Yeah.
estimate. So when we got an estimate from one trekking agency, they were showing like how much would be a guide, but it was also like, you have to change guide quite often. and the guide would come by plane. And obviously we were just coming the whole way from France by bicycle and just taking buses to the beginning and everything. We didn't want to have guides that comes and go from Kathmandu for 1 week and get planes. And yeah, it's very different organization, but I am very like, I don't know, I don't feel like I've done something so wrong with not having a guide, just because it's like, it's not really related to mountains. It's more related to these restricted areas and that they want that guides have enough work or something. But I mean, my boyfriend is a mountain guide, and I was doing already 2 long hikes. So it's not that we didn't know anything about mountains either.
So while you were out on the hike, were there many other hikers out there? Did you meet many other foreigners? And was it easy to, well, actually, there's almost two questions, easy to communicate with Nepalese people? Was English spoken, especially in some of the more remote sections?
It really depends on the section. It's very different throughout the hike, but mm there are quite some Nepalis that speak English. Actually, they speak quite good English, so that's nice to communicate with them. And even if there is, like, if you're talking with someone and they don't speak English, they always know someone in the village that speaks it, so they will call that person, you can talk with them. And Nepalese people are really friendly and they will always help you, like, find the way and find where you can eat. And at the beginning in far west Nepal, it's very remote and no tourists are going there. And we would reach a village and ask if there is a place where we can eat and that we are coming from like very remote area and a high pass. And they would just like stop what they are doing to make your dal bhat. So it was really friendly. And then there are some areas like we crossed the Annapurna circuit and Manaslu circuit especially, and those areas are super popular with trekkers. So we met a lot of hikers there, but it's just more, we were doing the opposite way as like compared to what people are hiking. So we were crossing like thousands of people, but not really like meeting them, we're just crossing them the whole day. And only at the end, like 3 weeks before the end, we met a couple that was going the other way and that were on the Great Himalaya Trail. So we chatted with them, and that's when we found out that there is actually a WhatsApp group for GH preparation that no one told us about. So we were like, oh, wow, that would have been helpful. But anyway, so we went on that WhatsApp group and we found out that there is an English couple just behind us and that we are going to be like more or less at the same point together. So we did hike a few days together and at the end, and so it was nice as well. So we met a few other people doing Great Himalaya Trail, which is really fun.
Which do you prefer, hiking or cycling, or are they pretty even?
It's really different, but I think for me, I prefer cycling. I mean, for a long trip. If I have like only like few weeks or months, I prefer to go in the mountains because I feel like, okay, as soon as I'm in the mountains, I feel like it's a different time and perception. So I feel like I've been here for such long time. So 3 weeks would feel like months. So that's really nice. But it's way more demanding for the body to carry your backpack. And also, like, for example, in Nepal, we basically stayed 3 months in Nepal, which was like, it's the same country and you get a bit your habits and the same language, culture, and everything. I feel like when you're cycling, you're way more often like meeting people and changing country, which is like something very new. Everything's different when you change country. So I think for a long trip, I do prefer cycling.
What happened at the end of your journey? What happened next for you?
So we have reached the far east Nepal, the Kanchenjunga base camp, and that was like highlight of the trip to get there. We were alone in December. It was super cold and we were at more than 5,000 meter altitude. And it was we still had like 2, 3 days to go back to the valley and get a transport back to Kathmandu. But it was like, we felt like it was the end. And we had still a few months before we had to go back home. So we decided to continue the trip to like cycling. So we took the bikes back and we went from China to Malaysia because my brother lives there. And I was just was like a little goal to go see him and just continue a bit the trip and not come back in January where it's still winter. And yeah, so it was like 2 months, 2 more months of cycling from China to Malaysia.
Oh, fantastic. And if we look at the stats, you started on the 9th of March 2024, finished on the 22nd of March 2025 in Kuala Lumpur. By bike, you were traveling for 8 months, 27 countries, 15,000 kilometers, 150,000 meters of elevation. By foot, 2.5 months, one country, Nepal, 1,300 kilometers, 82,000 meters of elevation. Just phenomenal. Now, I know you've written a couple of books previously. Are you writing a book about this adventure, this challenge, this incredible year that you've had?
Unfortunately, I'm not like, so I've written two.
What?
I'm making a video, so that's we were filming quite a lot about the bike and the hike, and so we're gonna make a video that we want to show at adventure festivals. But I'm a bit over writing, and yeah, right now it's like spring and summer, and don't want to spend too much time behind my computer. So if I feel like it in autumn or something, maybe I will. But right now, I'm just feeling more about the video. So.
How's the video editing going? I don't know if that's harder because you must have so much footage and even trying to like edit it and put it together.
It,
How is that coming along?
yeah, it's not easy, but we are doing it in two parts. So basically, one video about the hike and one about the bike, because some festivals are obviously only cycling festivals, or some are only mountains, and that we can like put together if we want. So I'm doing the hike video, so that's already like just only 2-3 months of hike, so it's not that much, and just yeah, just having like a text and a storytelling, and then you just have videos behind. And yeah, it's not that hard. I mean, obviously we're two, so we can have like advice from the other. And yeah, it's pretty rewarding. And you can show it to family and friends and have feedback from them as well. And yeah, I think it's less work than reading, like reading and writing, because other people have to read it and it takes so much time. So it's a bit faster.
I almost hate to ask this question, but I've got to ask it, which is, what have you got planned? Are you going to be home for quite a while? Do you need sort of like 6 months a year, back to job, save some more money? Have you got another adventure, or are you not? Are you not in that headspace yet where you're starting to think about the next challenge?
Well, we know the next trip will probably be in South America and do like a mix of hiking and cycling, but more like a mix on the go, like hiking for a week or two. And when they are in nice mountains, just hiking for a few days. That's really different than, because when we were cycling, sometimes like in northern Pakistan and everything, we're like, oh, we wish we had the gear to hike and do some little hikes. And sometimes in Nepal, we were like, oh, I wish I was on the bike. And so I think like a bit of a mix of both would be nice. So that would be the next trip, but there is no date to that. It's just in a while. Like right now, settling down in the Alps, and I just want to enjoy the mountains here and what France has to offer, and enjoy family and friends and trail running. And yeah, just settling down a bit for a year or two, and then we'll see what happens next.
Tifan, where can people connect with you, find out more about your adventures, your cycling, your hiking, your books? Where are you most active on social media?
I'm usually posting on Instagram. So my Instagram is Little Miss Pedals, and yeah, that's pretty much where I post with.
Wonderful. I'll make sure that I put the links to your Instagram, to your website as well, so that people can connect and follow along with you. And Tifan, I'd love for you to have the final words of advice, final words of wisdom for other women out there who do not who want to take on a big challenge, who do want to step outside their comfort zone. It may not be cycling from France to Malaysia or hiking the Great Himalaya Trail, but they want to do something that inspires them. Apart from just do it, what advice would you like to share?
Well, maybe that's already the advice I gave on the other podcast. I don't remember, but it's like just to do something big like this, you start with something little. And I remember my first bike trip, I just didn't know how to change a flat tire, and I went on a 12,000 kilometer cycling trip. So it's like, if you feel like you're capable of doing it and that you want to do it, yeah, you will always find the resources in yourself to do it. So whatever like the mechanical problems with the bag or other problems, you will always find a solution. So I think it's just something that you have into you. So it doesn't matter what other people say, and just trust yourself.
Just trust yourself. Absolutely. Massive congratulations. A phenomenal journey that you have been on. So excited for when the films come out. I'll make sure I post and share when they go live. But thank you for coming back on the Tough Girl Podcast Extra and sharing more about your last adventure. Just incredible.
I was very happy to be here. Thank you, Sarah.
Hey, Tribe. I really hope you enjoyed that Tough Girl Podcast episode with Tiphaine. What an absolute legend. What an incredible journey to go on, to cycle from France all the way across to Nepal and then to go and hike the Great Himalaya Trail. Just incredible. I, for one, cannot wait for those films to come out. They are going to be amazing to watch. I've never been to Nepal, and it is definitely on my bucket list. I would love to visit at some point, whether that's to go to Everest Base Camp, to walk the Great Himalayan Trail or hike the Great Himalayan Trail. I think that would just be absolutely incredible. If you are interested in hiking and cycling, then please visit toughgirlchallenges.com, and we have a resources page dedicated to those two activities. So please go explore. Please listen to previous and past interviews to motivate and inspire you with what your next challenge and next adventure is going to be. Our next episode is also going to be a Tough Girl Podcast Extra. We are catching up with Vedangi Kulkarni. This episode is coming out on the 30th of September. So in this candid, I'm just going to share a little bit more about it. So in this candid and raw Tough Girl Podcast Extra episode, we reconnect with the unstoppable Vedangi Kulkarni, who is the youngest woman to have cycled around the world and who recently returned from doing it again. Now based in Inverness, Scotland, Vedangi opens up about her second attempt at cycling around the globe, this time not just for the journey, but in pursuit of a Guinness World Record. From racing Lael Wilcox to navigating border delays, funding pressures, and the relentless physical and mental toll of riding across 5 continents, Vedangi doesn't hold back. This conversation is about pushing limits, embracing failures, and finding strength when things don't go to plan. So highlights from the episode include breaking a record in the Himalayas in 2023, preparing to cycle the world again in 2024 and finding sponsorship, gear, and coaching, struggles of travelling on an Indian passport, and the challenges of visa logistics, being delayed at borders, detained, and ultimately forced to return to the UK mid-ride due to visa expiry. Restarting in 2025, finishing the ride under the blazing Indian summer sun, dealing with the post-expedition blues and finding her footing again. Vedangi's story is one of resilience, honesty and fierce determination. Despite knowing she wouldn't get the world record, she kept going, driven by passion, grit and the belief that stories worth telling are born from adversity. Now she's looking ahead to her next expedition, ramping up her YouTube and Substack presence and continuing to speak openly about the realities of life as a woman of colour in adventure sport. Now, just a little heads up, that episode does contain a few little bits of strong language, but it's still worth listening to. New episodes of the Tough Girl Podcast drop every Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss the inspiring journeys and incredible stories of tough women pushing boundaries. If you want to support the Tough Girl mission to increase the amount of female role models in the media in the world of adventure and physical challenges, you can support via Patreon. Join me in making a difference. You can sign up at Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. There's monthly options and annual options available. Thank you so much for all your incredible support. And all that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all. Give it 110%. Get after it. Go for it. Believe in yourself because I believe in you. Take care. Lots of love and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.